right, so Allison, we have two images from you. As we had talked about, these images are still really pixelated. Like there's certain areas you can really see that in. You can see that back here. If we look at your other image, you can definitely see it as you look at the arm of the subject here, or even back in this area. You see on her pants significantly. So hopefully you're seeing this pixelation, and I had sent you those links. It looks like you got those as far as how to correct for this to make sure that you're shooting with large enough files, because we don't want your images to only work for online. We want them to be high quality for you to be able to print out. Now let's see, you're at ISO 800, 800, 160, so that longer lens, f11 on both of them. Oops. And the same, all the settings are the same on both of these images. So let's kind of break this down. So first, you're shooting with a really high ISO. Not a really high, you're shooting with a higher ISO. And it's bright, sunny day in the middle of the afternoon. You're shooting this at let's see, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock in the afternoon, actually at high noon. So we know that there's enough light here. So you can bring down your ISO. You could shoot this at ISO 100 without any issue. You're shooting it at 160 millimeters, so that is narrowing your point of view, opposed to getting what we think of street photography, where you're shooting with a wider angle lens to include all of the scene. So I would shoot this with a wider angle lens. And then f11, 1/1000th of a second, those look fine. Those could be adjusted though, either less depth of field or a slower shutter speed as you bring down your ISO. So let's remember what we're looking for in street photography. We're looking for something unexpected, elements that are only in relationship because of you photographing them. So these are normally split seconds that happen, and you can capture this kind of unusual moment with your camera. And in both of these images, they're kind of normal moments. I'm not noticing anything that is out of the ordinary or things that are being combined that you wouldn't combine. In this image, for sure we're not. We see some signs in the background. We see the hillside in the background, and that's actually, I think, the most interesting part of this image. And then three subjects just walking forward. There's no interaction between any of them that pulls our interest in. And then in this image, the only thing that I could say is that you don't expect a mom with her two young kids to be going into the tractor supply company. Like, that's a little bit unexpected. But I think that's kind of like an old mindset. I don't think that's necessarily as unexpected now as it would have been 30 years ago. So it's not that juxtaposition that it may have been a while ago. But again, here you have the mountainside in the background. And I think that's where we could really push this image, is to have it be more about like the irony of having this strip mall. This you said was in front of Walmart where you work, and the other one, the Tractor Supply, having that with this beautiful landscape behind it. Like, all of this is available to you, and where you spend your time is at the Walmart or at the Tractor Supply company. So I think working with that narrative, you could push it a little bit further, and then watch how people interact with one another, and if you can capture something. So first, set yourself up with a scene, and maybe your scene is just that we can see the top of the mountains, we see the vastness of this, and we see the Walmart, and then maybe you have an interaction between two people. So it has those kind of three layers happening to it. A scene that's happening that includes two objects or two parts of the scene interacting, and then a third element there. So that's kind of what's missing here. Also, watch your exposure, because we can see both of these are getting blown out. Let's see which way. So you want to pull back on your exposure on both of these. And then it's actually just the opposite here for your exposure on these, Daniel. They're both underexposed. So we're not holding on to the differences in the blacks as much as we'd like to, right? The pants and the skin and the Under Armour and the background, all of those are kind of blending together. So waiting for the light to be a little bit better and having a little bit more exposure would create more separation. Now, let's look at your settings real quick. So ISO 100, 105, so again, a longer lens, f4.5 at 1/50th of a second. Even longer lens. Okay, so again, this is street photography in that you're photographing someone that's out on the street. But this woman is very unusual, right? She has her cigarette, she has her can in her hand, she has something that looks like it could be fur. We see her mask that she's not using, and then she has this mask over her eyes that's just like throws everything out. We don't understand what's going on. So there's a little bit of something being unusual about this individual. And again, we see the same thing here, and it's that combination of those three that's pretty interesting. I actually think her mask says Jesus 2020. I mean, I don't know if that's exactly what it says. That's what it looks like, which I think could add a whole nother element to this image. So what we have is a really interesting subject. And we have someone here that's interesting, not nearly as interesting as the other person, though. This combination of the pearls and the mask and the eye mask and the fur, like all of this is really interesting. But I think if we're still looking for that combination of unexpected elements, it would include someone else. It would include her dressed like this, walking past someone in a business suit, right? That interaction would create that juxtaposition. Right now, it's just kind of a portrait of a woman, but the environment, who's around her, what's around her, doesn't really tell us anything at this point. So pushing that so that there is an interaction with someone else, I think could make these stronger. And it doesn't even have to be a someone else. It could be a something else. It could be the building that she's walking in front of, or the kind of car she's walking in front of, or a sign she's walking in front of. It could be any of these symbols, but something else needs to be combined with this for it to be that action or interaction that we're looking for of elements in a street photograph. Yeah, they're all underexposed as well, so that's something else for you to be aware of.